We have been monitoring the Arizona Senate race very closely because of its importance in deciding the fate of the Senate. Who will have control of the Senate is in part going to be decided by this, what will probably be a very close race between Democrat Ruben Gallego and MAGA Republican Kari Lake. And of course, Kari Lake has had the avid support of Trump publicly, but interestingly, he says some different things than what you'd expect given his public remarks about her in private. And we'll go through some reporting about that. I will also talk about in just a little bit some really good news out of Arizona that we've been waiting for, and we got it. And it's the opposite of MAGA prevailing, which is what you want to see here. But the reporting is from the Washington Post, and this piece is titled "Tensions Grow Between Trump and Lake in Arizona Race for Senate." The former president fears that GOP candidate Kari Lake might not win and will drag down his own prospects in the battleground state. And I'll read some more from this, but one of my favorite anecdotes from it is that Trump is getting annoyed with how often Kari Lake is at Mar-a-Lago, which I sort of wondered that myself. She's there so often, it's strange. And she also is traveling to these other states to campaign with other Republicans, which makes no sense. I talked about an interview she did in Idaho, or I think it was Idaho, and I was confused as to why she was in Idaho. And she just is doing a lot of weird things politically when she should be focusing on winning the state of Arizona's Senate race. Now, I would prefer her do as many things to make that as hard as possible. So you know what? Ignore my advice and go travel wherever you like. But here's some more from this. Former President Donald Trump has long had a soft spot for his acolyte, Kari Lake, the expected GOP Senate nominee in Arizona, joking that Lake would pivot to his false claims that the 2020 election was stolen, even if she was asked about the weather, which sounds delightful. Imagine a dinner with her. 2020 election was rigged and stolen. But since Lake jumped in the race, Trump has repeatedly expressed skepticism about her political prospects in a state he sees as key to his bid to return to the White House, and has shown annoyance with her frequent presence at his Florida resort, according to people who spoke anonymously. At one point last year, after grumbling for months that she was at his Mar-a-Lago club too often, Trump gently suggested to Lake that she should leave the club and hit the campaign trail in Arizona, according to a person with direct knowledge of his comments. Which, strategically, that is correct, but it's hilarious that you can over loyalty to Trump, right? You can go overboard with your loyalty to Trump, even though that's sort of the thing that he thrives off of, is making people act super loyal to him. But it's a little much when Kari Lake does it to the extent that she does. Trump has now all but ruled out Lake as a vice presidential pick, remarking to multiple advisors that he would not choose her as vice president because she lost the 2022 gubernatorial race in Arizona, which he believed was winnable. Quote, "She didn't win." Now, this is interesting. And again, another example of the character of Trump, because he watches Kari Lake lie out the wazoo about 2020 in service of him. So then Kari Lake, using the Donald Trump playbook, started lying about her gubernatorial race in 2022, saying that it was also stolen, just like President Trump's. But then Trump privately is like, 2022 wasn't stolen, she just lost it, which is her fault. And so he doesn't want her to be his vice presidential running mate for that reason. Then it talks about the story of the GOP chairman, Jeff DeWit. You might remember that he was the chairman in Arizona. He's no longer, because he resigned after Kari Lake released audio of him, a recorded conversation of him trying to convince her to not run for Senate after she lost her gubernatorial race. And what's interesting is it was wild what he was trying to do. He was trying to offer her a cushy job, a financial incentive to stay out of politics. She frames this as, see, the deep state wanted to bribe me because I'm such a threat to the globalist deep state. But in reality, it was her own party begging her not to get in the race because they don't want to lose the Arizona Senate race. So yes, it's wrong and reflects very poorly on Jeff DeWit. It also reflects poorly on Kari Lake that her party feels like she's so politically toxic that they would do something like that to try to prevent her from running. But she ran anyway. And in response to that, Trump said, "She tapes everything?" That's good to know. Which, what does he not want to be taped? Then Trump asked an advisor, a Republican, about his prospects in the state of Arizona, and the Republican told him that he was in good shape, but that Lake was in trouble, largely because of her attacks on McCain Republicans, whom she urged to get the hell out of the GOP during her first run for office. She has since said that comment was made in jest. Now, that's also interesting. So you follow the Trump playbook and you can overdo it and make him annoyed with you. So we saw that, as I just went through, with the stolen election claims. She learned that way of going about sort of losing an election from Trump. She just copied him exactly. Shortly before, you make some remarks about how there's some suspicious activity that we're hearing about, but we still may be able to prevail electorally. And then afterwards you say, see, I warned you, they stole the election. I never could have possibly lost, and I'm so incredible. And Kari Lake did that about 2022. Trump did that, of course, about 2020. They both lost a gazillion court cases trying to prove it. And so then Trump gets annoyed and says, no, she just lost, okay? She lost because she's not popular enough. Then here, the attacks against quote-unquote McCain Republicans, that's something that Trump started and then Kari Lake followed, and now it's hurting her politically a lot. And so he thinks that's not a great political assessment. And I will say, as a strategy, it's pretty dang crazy to say to a portion of your own party, right? McCain Republicans is synonymous with moderate Republicans in the state of Arizona. And you say to those individuals, get the hell out, while disparaging someone that is sort of a political icon in that state. A very wild political strategy for sure. Now, one of the reasons that Kari Lake is experiencing so much political trouble, as even Trump seems to be identifying, and hopefully one of the reasons that Trump will experience a lot of political trouble in Arizona, is because of the bringing back to the forefront of reproductive rights for Arizonans because of the Arizona Supreme Court decision that upheld the 1864 near total abortion ban that doesn't even make exceptions for rape or incest. And we've been waiting to see, will that get repealed? Because Republicans up until this point had been obstructing that effort. Luckily, enough Republicans finally did go along with Democrats to repeal this horrific law. But the citizens now being extra minded of the importance of this issue and demanding their rights back is causing a headache, understandably so, as it should, for Kari Lake. Now, before discussing that part of it more, here is the good news, which is Katie Hobbs first speaking a little bit on her signing this into law, which is the repeal of this 1864 near total abortion ban, and then the actual signing.
Today, we are doing what 23 governors and 55 legislatures refused to do, and I'm so proud to be the ones that got this job done.
I'm going to pause your viewing of this video super quickly to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just click that subscribe button, and right next to it is the join button, so you can become a member to get the daily bonus show by clicking that join button. Back to the video.
And while I'm proud to sign this bill and provide a moment of relief for Arizonans, we still have work to do. Arizona women are still governed by a ban that leaves no exceptions for rape or incest, nor does it account for complications during pregnancy. We do not have guarantees that the basic right to contraception or access to IVF are protected, even as threats mount. Today, we should not rest, but we should recommit to protecting women's bodily autonomy, their ability to make their own healthcare decisions, and the ability to control their lives.
Governor Katie Hobbs signed a repeal of that state's 1864 Civil War era near total ban on abortions, which the state Supreme Court ruled constitutional last month. While it is good news for the women of Arizona, the repeal does not go into effect right away, meaning that the women of Arizona will still have to live for months under a ban with no exceptions for rape or incest. A law originally passed before women had the right to vote.
And I'll remind you that Kari Lake has flip-flopped like you would not believe on this issue, going from saying a bunch of times that she loved the idea of this 1864 law being upheld back before it was. Then she saw the political nightmare that was causing and said, no, it shouldn't be enforced and it should be repealed. And then she flipped back when speaking to conservatives and said, oh, no, I wish it were enforced, but it's wrong that the Democratic leaders aren't going to enforce this law. And so she's bouncing around doing the Trump thing where you sort of bounce around every single position and hope that that makes people have a hard time know what you actually believe and just assume the best. And this is a reminder of the importance of voting, because Katie Hobbs beat Kari Lake in 2022 in the gubernatorial race by less than 1%. So it really matters to vote. And because of that, I doubt that Kari Lake, if she were governor right now, which she very well could have been, again, a very close race, that she would be getting this done like Katie Hobbs is. And that's shown by, again, her flip-flopping on the issue and her real stance being she wants this in law, but her political answer being sometimes that she doesn't. And so it really does matter to engage in these different elections. And hopefully seeing this will be a reminder to the citizens of Arizona not to get complacent, but seeing that it matters to have Democrats in positions of power, and that if they want to protect their rights, they need to make sure that people like Kari Lake lose. Let me know your thought of all that in the comments.